in Cornwall for a week and I've set myself the challenge of just using one lens for the whole trip, and I've chosen to use the 35mm f2 on the Fuji X-T5. I've also brought with me the 16-55mm 2.8, but I'm probably just going to end up using that more for video stuff. And my girlfriend has the Fuji X-E2 with the 23mm f2 lens, which is a lens that I really love, so I'm going to really try and not be tempted to use that if I feel that the 35 is not getting the results that I want. But in this video I'm just going to be trying to use this lens, so we'll see how I get on. So I've done trips and travel before where I've just committed to using one lens, and I have done a trip before where I literally just used the 35mm f2, which was when I went to Lisbon a couple of years ago, and I got some photos that I was just super happy with, and I think the 35mm f2 in that city just performed really well. I think the 50mm equivalent focal length was kind of the perfect setup for that city specifically, and yeah, I got some really cool shots of kind of trams down little alleyways, and then also it was good for getting kind of wider shots, because like a 50mm equivalent lens isn't necessarily wide, but you can use it to get some really good sort of context in the image, focusing around your subjects as well. So that's why I think the 50 is just a really great all-rounder, and that's why I've decided to use it here. I know a lot of photographers probably experience this as well, but I always put this kind of pressure on myself when I'm traveling to have like a lot of different focal lengths available. I think this is actually a hindrance to my photography, and it ends up just being more stressful. If I'm constantly worrying about like, oh, this is the wrong focal length for this scene, then maybe I'll take 3 different photos, but I still can't like decide between which one I think is the best. So I think just having a prime lens just mitigates that situation happening, and if you're not thinking about the lens you're using, you're more focused on the moment and you're more focused on capturing the scene, which I think is way more important in travel photography. And I think that's why I enjoyed using the X100VI so much when I went to Scotland this summer. I wasn't bothered about having a lot of different focal lengths available. It just meant that I sort of got used to the lens I was using, and that just naturally became the way that I was visualizing scenes and the way that I was kind of like imagining the photos in my head. So I think it's a way more natural way to do photography when you're not sort of stressing about like, oh, should I take this really wide or should I zoom right into like 70mm? There's definitely value in doing that, but I think for me a lot of the time it becomes a bit of a hindrance, and I start focusing on that way more than, is this a nice scene, do I want to take a photo of it, and then just moving on. So it's really nice just not having to think about the gear that you're using. You kind of just stick the lens on at the start of the day, or you have a fixed lens camera, and you just get used to that, and that becomes what you naturally see. And I think if you are focusing on focal length too much, I think that can take away from the experience of just being in an amazing place. And I think having a focal length that you can just stick to means that once you get the shot, you can just enjoy the experience of being where you are. So whilst I do enjoy using zoom lenses like the 16 to 55mm, whenever I use that lens I'm always kind of second guessing whether the focal length I just used was the right one for that scene or not. For example, when I went to San Francisco last year, I got some photos that I was really happy with, but I think I spent a lot of time shooting scenes in multiple ways, and I think sometimes this did kind of take away from the experience of just being in a cool place. So whilst I think the lens that you use definitely matters for a specific look, I think it also doesn't matter if you're just able to focus on being present in the moment, because then you can enjoy taking in the moment of the environment that you're in without looking through a viewfinder or a screen. So to conclude, I think sticking to one setup can be really beneficial for working on different kinds of compositions and ideas, but most of all I think limitation really is the biggest catalyst for creativity.